Hi everyone. So let's go ahead and take a look at just a couple of special features here in section 10 that I want to concentrate on. Most of this section is going to be identification of blood vessels in the head and trunk, but I just want to look at something called the cerebral arterial circle, or the circle of Willis. I like to call it the circle of Willis, and also something called the hepatic portal circulation. And the reason why I want to look at it is, of course, they're important functions in the body, but also because they show these a couple of these alternative pathways that we looked at way back in the very first section. So first, let's take a look at the cerebral arterial circle. And again, I like to call it circle of Willis. I don't know, because I love different strokes when I was growing up, and I like Bruce Willis. Who knows? But that's why I like to call it circle of Willis. And what this is, it's an arterial anastomosis. Remember, we mentioned this back in the first section about how an anastomosis is going to be this joining of blood vessels. This is an arterial anastomosis. So look at all of these different blood vessels that are coming in and joining one another. You can kind of zoom in right here. They're joining together to form this nice circle. And it's multiple ones that are going to form it, as you can see, and I don't expect you to know this, of course, all of the different ones that are going to form the circle of Willis. But as you can see, some cerebral arteries, communicating arteries. The internal carotid is going to be part of it. The internal carotid, it's cut off, but here it is, and then it goes on to form something called the middle cerebral artery right here. And I'll talk about why I want to look at that in a second. But this basically formed at the base of the brain surrounding the sella turcica. So remember, the sella turcica is that structure in the bone in the skull that the pituitary gland is going to sit in. So that kind of gives you an idea of where it's at. This is important for a couple of reasons. It helps equalize blood pressure in the brain, but it's also going to create these kind of collateral channels that if one of the blood vessels is blocked, the blood vessel or the entire brain is still going to get the blood it needs and the oxygen and nutrients that it needs in order to survive. So that's the beauty of this nice circle of Willis here. And just the reason why I brought up middle cerebral arteries, because this is where one of the most common sites of a stroke is going to be this middle cerebral artery. So let's say that there is either a clot or a hemorrhage right in here. That means the entire part of this entire part of the cerebrum is not going to get any kind of blood flow, and that's how strokes are going to occur. So depending on if it's on the left side or the right side, they do give very different, not very different, but they can give some very different signs and symptoms. Some are going to be similar. But again, if there's some kind of blockage here, then this cerebral arterial circle of Willis is going to ensure that the rest of the entire brain still is going to get the blood supply that it needs. Let's move on down. Look at something in the gastrointestinal tract and the abdominal pelvic cavity. This is a hepatic portal system. So this is one of those portal circulations that we looked at right after the anastomosis, way back in this first section. So remember, that's the one that had the arterial that fed into a capillary bed. That's my capillary bed, isn't it beautiful? And then that fed into a portal vein, which fed into another capillary bed, and then drained into a venule, and then into a vein, and so on and so forth. So that's what we have here, although you can't see it. We can see the portal vein, but we can't really see these little capillaries that great. But what we can see is, let's take a look. We can see part of it, but let's take a look. Here's the portal vein. So that is going to be what connects the two capillary beds that we're not able to see. The two capillary beds, you're going to have capillary beds that are draining all of these digestive organs, and then they are going to drain into this common hepatic portal vein. As you can see, all of them are going to go in here, and then it's going to dive into the liver, and that's where we have a second little circular capillary bed, and right in there that we can't see. So really what's happening here is all of the blood from the digestive organs, but also the spleen over here as well, they actually don't go into the vena cava like the rest of the veins do drain into. They go through the liver first, and it's very important reasons here. One of the reasons is the fact that the liver is going to take all the nutrients, because this blood, even though it's going to be, it's deoxygenated, but it is rich in nutrients because it's coming from the digestive organs over here. So the liver can go in and kind of process these nutrients. It can go in and keep some glucose if it needs to for glycogen storage. It can go in and, kind of filter out, process the amino acids and decide what it wants to do with that. Maybe keep some if it needs to, make any proteins. Another thing that it does is it can go in and get rid of any harmful pathogens that we might have eaten and absorbed that way. Or even, of course, not necessarily just in the food, but look, harmful agents absorbed in the blood as well. And another thing that it does is bringing that spleen into the factor right here, is that it receives the products of erythrocyte destruction. I remember, like, bilirubin is going to come from the spleen and from that heme group, and it can be used to make bile in the liver. Or transferrin, the iron, can make it over here, and we can store it in the liver if we need to. So that's another important reason why we have this whole hepatic portal system, and the reason why the blood is going to drain into the hepatic portal vein, go into this other capillary network, and eventually it will, see that? It will get into the inferior vena cava and go into the blood supply that way. So that's another interesting thing that we are going to have here. So the very last section that we are going to be taking a look at is the fetal circulation. So until next time.